Hello, everyone. Hopefully we are now live on Facebook and you guys can find us wherever you are around the world. I am Julie Flygar and I am the president and CEO of Project Sleep. And we have a very special guest with us here tonight, Rachel Miyazaki. And say hi, Rachel, are you there?
Hi.
So excited to have you with us tonight. And you are up in Seattle, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So we are now live and excited to be here and have Rachel share her very powerful essay. So just to get things started, I just want to remind everyone that this is a public video. And so you'll be able to share it. And please, please, please do share it to help raise awareness about narcolepsy and share Rachel's powerful story. But of course, also, we would love for you to comment in and share where you're watching from. So it's Rachel and I won't be able to see those comments live, but it's really fun to go back and see where you're watching from. So tell us, give us a shout out from wherever you are. And also please know that the comments will be saved with the video. So you wouldn't want to share anything there, any sort of personal information that you wouldn't want to be public. And we will have have Rachel. She's going to read her essay tonight, and then I'm going to ask her a few questions, and then we'd love to hear questions from you as well. So as you're hearing Rachel's essay and certain lines that really resonate with you, or questions you have for her more about her experience, please write those comments into the Facebook comments, and we will get a few questions over to Rachel tonight. So let's see what else. I don't think I have any huge updates for you about Project Sleep this week. Thank you guys for tuning in this past, was it just this week? No, it was 2 Thursdays ago. We did the interview with Dr. Mignot about narcolepsy immunology, genetics, neurology, upper airway infections. It was a lot of science and it was really exciting. So thank you for checking out that video. And last weekend we had Elizabeth's story. And so yeah, we're just chugging away here with Project Sleep. I can't think of anything super exciting, just trying our best to make things as accessible online as possible as things go on. And we hope that you are staying safe at home. So with that, I think that I will go ahead and get ready to have Rachel read her essay. So let's see, I'm going to pull up Rachel's essay. And hopefully you guys should be able to see that now. And I will go ahead and read her bio. Tonight's presenter is Rachel Miyazaki. She is a production coordinator and houseplant enthusiast living in Seattle, originally from Hawaii. She has struggled with sleep disorders since childhood, and now as a Rising Voices of Narcolepsy writer, wants to advocate for fellow people with narcolepsy, especially students and employees. So with that, Rachel, we're so excited to have you read your essay.
Great, thank you so much. So this piece is called The Awakening, and it was originally published in Brainmill Press's Voices series. So I'm 27 years old and have never had a good night's sleep. From childhood through early adulthood, I struggled to fall asleep at night and fought to stay awake during the day. At its most extreme, my body would demand 12-hour sleep-wake cycles, refusing to wake up until 3 p.m. and finally caving into sleep at 3 a.m. Whether it was blamed on technology, caffeine, or another culprit, family, friends, teachers, and medical providers were convinced that it was me choosing to be this way. Part of me believed it too. TV shows and movies reinforced these stereotypes in my mind. Yet part of me found flaws in their accusations. The spontaneous burst of nocturnal energy started long before I ever took a sip of soda or owned a cell phone. When I turned 23, I started to notice a shift. I began to never feel completely awake. Other chronic illnesses had prevented me from fulfilling my longtime dream of volunteering overseas for the Peace Corps. So I did the next best thing, work with international students at a university. My body can't handle humid tropics or arid deserts, but a rural college town would be smooth sailing, or so I thought. On one of my first days, I attended an early morning meeting with staff from another department. We started off with introductions, and I enthusiastically scribbled each person's details in my notebook, eager to foster this new partnership. Then I felt it. Unbearable sleepiness crept on my body, weighing my head and eyelids down like tar. I wasn't sure what was worse, admitting defeat by putting my head down into my arms on the table to sleep, or enduring the awkward ebb and flow of my head with my eyes rolled back and my mouth hanging open. I figured that, at least in the second case, I was somewhat upright and attentive, though probably appearing more like a propped-up zombie than a well-meaning professional. This was my wake-up call. I knew something was definitely wrong. It's hard enough to be taken seriously in the workplace as a woman of color spawned in the 90s. I'm fueled to surpass expectations by every clickbaity gripe about millennials on my newsfeed, every microaggression I swallowed behind a forced smile. Embarrassment, frustration, and desperation drove me to seek out answers from various doctors and test quirky tips from online listicles. I had cut out caffeine due to the onset of an unrelated heart condition. I tried wearing orange tinted glasses to block out wakefulness promoting blue light from electronics, but mostly just made me feel like a rebel pilot from Star Wars. Nothing worked. I would be so tired that the times that I could manage to call or email in to my supervisor to request a sick day, my slurred speech and nonsensical texts led them to jokingly say that I sounded drunk. Coincidentally, the onset of my chronic illnesses had led me to become intolerant of both caffeine and alcohol. After multiple misdiagnoses, 2 overnight sleep studies, 2 afternoon nap studies, and 23 years of self-doubt, I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. It took an average of 7 minutes for me to fall asleep during the nap series. In one nap, I fell asleep after just 12 seconds. I had also experienced early rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, in 2 of the nap sessions, one after 5.5 minutes and another after just 4. To put this into perspective, it typically takes 90 minutes for a person to reach REM sleep after sleep onset. My narcolepsy diagnosis was a double-edged sword. It was validating because I finally had proof, albeit just a medical term, to validate my struggles with sleep to those that had doubted me. I could get a doctor's note to request accommodations at work. Yet I soon realized that a simple diagnosis wouldn't magically make the world empathize with me or work with my new lifestyle. I remember being stuck on the word narcolepsy when my doctor first diagnosed me. The only times I'd heard it before were in comedic situations. A teenager face planting into the bowl of Captain Crunch before school, a person slumping down into their chair mid-conversation with a friend. It was more of an old wives' tale rather than a potential reality. I can see the gears turning in people's head when I tell them I have narcolepsy. I feel like it's a word that most folks have heard but never really processed. Narcolepsy is more complex than extreme bouts of sleep, and people with narcolepsy are certainly more than running gags. Take a drink of water really quick. Sleep can be emotionally and physically draining for people like me. Some aspects of sleep can even be traumatizing. Recurrent vivid nightmares throughout the night have left me feeling paranoid and jumpy well into hours after waking up for the day. Sleep paralysis is another symptom straight out of a horror film. I'm awake and blinking, but I can't move my body, speak, or breathe. Some folks see demons or hear scary voices when experiencing sleep paralysis. The unfortunate reality is that I have an unrequited love with sleep. I crave it constantly, but only receive fractured, unrefreshing sleep in return. Looking back on my life, I realized how little sleep hygiene was encouraged outside of family and doctors reprimanding me for my personal issues. In elementary school, we had school ride, fun run fundraisers, and jump rope competitions. Messaging on milk cartons, cereal boxes, and snacks emphasized each respective product's contribution to a balanced diet. National campaigns promote physical exercise and conscious eating habits to people of various ages and backgrounds. Why doesn't sleep carry that same weight? Would I have had a quicker, smoother route to diagnosis, treatment, and accommodations with more community education and societal advocacy? Would I have been spared from years of feeling like a delusional, worthless burden? I had struggled with depression and anxiety since adolescence. At first, I blamed my chronic illnesses for further aggravating my mental illnesses. I resented my nervous system for its inability to function properly, especially at the so-called prime of my life. I wasn't one to say no to adventure. I wasn't one to flake out on plans, and I wasn't one to show up late to work. I had become critical of myself for becoming the antithesis of the values I grew up with. As I became more involved with disability rights, I realized that my embarrassment and frustration stemmed from the ableist structures and perspectives I encountered and internalized. Despite being regularly recognized for my initiative, efficiency, and innovation at work, I would be patronized for showing up 30 minutes late or sleeping at my desk during my lunch breaks. I hadn't known about my rights to reasonable accommodations, like flex time, restructured work hours, or nap breaks until I did my own research years later. Family would chastise me for spending family gatherings hidden away sleeping on a couch, rather than acknowledging how much effort it took for me to get up, get ready, show up, and say my rounds of sincere hellos in the first place. Friendships were the most painful gripes. Longtime friends grew uncomfortable with the new fine print that came with hanging out. If we went to a concert, I'd need reserved seating, so no more mosh pits for me. If we went to a bar or coffee shop, I'd need to sip with water. If we planned a day of sightseeing, I need to schedule nap breaks in the afternoon. I'd still be excited to spend time together, but these minor accommodations were deemed boring or inconvenient. If you think about it, many of the things our culture views as professional or otherwise socially acceptable are unnecessary, ableist, and classist. If there's one positive aspect of having chronic illnesses, it's that they've allowed me to become better at filtering out fleeting friends, silly rules, and shallow activities, to prioritize the people, values, and hobbies that are worth my limited waking hours and energy. Since the onset of my narcolepsy, I've devoted more time to self-discovery and pursuing what fits my new lifestyle. I used to love the thrill of the outdoors, especially traveling to national parks across the US. Of all the travels I've had, it's the natural scenic areas that are most cherished and ingrained in my memory. From the humbling giant sequoias of Muir Woods to the tranquil, almost surreal lotus paddies of Cambodia. It's challenging for me to leave my house outside of work obligations these days because of my chronic illnesses. However, I found that I can bring the outdoors in by tending to houseplants. Many people admire plants for their visual pure or alleged purifying qualities. I appreciate them for their diversity and tenacity. Contrary to popular belief, many plants can be rehabilitated and eventually flourish with the right care and environment. You often see mushy succulents, ratty ferns, and droopy begonias all bunched together on the same rack in the garden section of a big box store. You'd be surprised how many of those sad, worn-out plants on the sale rack can actually be salvaged. Like humans, plants are not one size fits all. Even within the same family, different plants have different needs. If you picture someone taking care of a houseplant, the image that pops into most people's mind is someone watering it and maybe placing it near a sunny window. Like diet and exercise for humans, there tends to be a limited focus on water and light. The appreciation and corresponding care for each plant's unique light, water, soil, aeration, humidity, and feeding needs allows them to thrive. It may be different or a bit more work than what you're used to, but there's nothing like spotting a tiny new growth on a houseplant that you put effort into. This observation helps me push through the times where I feel like I'm being dramatic, inconvenient, or selfish due to my narcolepsy symptoms. I can thrive as long as my basic needs, however unique they may be, are met, and the environment I'm in is conducive to my growth. People with narcolepsy can achieve great things, and we need our families, friends, schools, workplaces, and communities to recognize and support that potential. Wakefulness does not equal worth. Yay.
Yay. Oh, wow. Such a powerful essay. Thank you so much for sharing it with us tonight and read so beautifully. I'm going to go to this view where we can kind of see both of us. I told Rachel when she read this during our practice round the other day that she had the voice for, essay reading. And I was jealous, and that if I ever wrote another book myself, I would like to hire her to be the reader, because she just did such a beautiful job reading. It's actually, as I learned when I did my own audiobook, it's quite an art.
Yes.
So great job, Rachel. It's just,
thank you.
although I already loved your essay, hearing you read it is such a special experience. So please, everyone, go ahead and type in some questions for Rachel about her experience on Facebook. I'm going to start with a few questions for her. So let's see. You currently work in disability rights video production, which is so super cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I'm a production coordinator with Rooted in Rights, which is the creative media team for Disability Rights Washington, which is the protection and advocacy agency for the state of Washington. So basically, the Disability Rights Washington is a legal team that advocates for the rights of folks with disabilities, and Rooted in Rights helps produce media, mostly video content, but also social media content for those advocacy efforts.
And how did you get involved with that?
I actually didn't know disability rights was a thing until I started. So it was like I'm very fortunate to have stumbled into that. You know, before, like I mentioned, when I grew up, no one ever talked about disability rights or even accommodations. So, you know, discovering this whole new world of people and this whole new identity that you can claim and be proud of was really special for me.
It's so, so cool. And so you participated in the Rising Voices program in the summer of 2018, so almost 2 years ago, and you were already working full time, right?
Yes.
So, you know, we're always really curious to hear how people balance that, you know, that you already have so much going on. How did you make time to put together all of this essay and prioritize being part of this program while also working full time and living with narcolepsy and other conditions?
Mm-hmm. I think what was really helpful about this program was the structure that it had. So, you know, there's a timeline, there are worksheets and activities to help us think about where to start from. When you write, whether it's an advocacy video or advocacy essay, it's hard to really think about how to make it concise because we want to share all the different details and all the different information, but to make it concise and effective is kind of a tough place to start from. But, you know, working full time on top of healthcare needs and things like that, I think, you know, setting a time, couple hours every Saturday, having a schedule really helped me. You know, even if it wasn't a writing assignment, just thinking about the concepts and the work was really helpful for me. And for my work at Student Rights, I coordinate a similar program, but for video advocacy. We train folks with disabilities to write, film, and script, or write, film, and edit their own advocacy videos. So, you know, it was interesting for me to be on the other side and try to, you know, think about what I could do better as a coordinator to make the program and the experience more accessible, because, you know, in the end, such a great opportunity and not something everyone has the opportunity to participate in yet. So to really take advantage and yeah, have gratitude for this opportunity that I had really helped.
That is so cool. And I'm sure I could learn a lot about, you know, best practices from what you guys are doing too. But it's just so neat. And I actually didn't even really know all this about Rachel until we started having this conversation about this broadcast. So it's just really, really neat. And thank you for taking the time to make this essay possible, because I know it's resonated with me and so many other people. So you fit in so many different points here, and it was interesting to reread it now, kind of like in the wake of COVID-19, and you know how much life has seemed to change so dramatically, like so quickly for people in America. And so I thought that point about how you talked about how you had loved traveling so much, that was a big part of your life, and that you weren't able to do that because you know, in your case, because of your illnesses, but you found this love of houseplants. And I thought that kind of could resonate with a lot of people right now that are feeling like all at once their world is kind of shrunk, you know, in a certain way. And how do we make do, and how do we find life and joy? And so, you know, that's already like such an amazing, amazing point that you made. But then you go and make this incredible analogy. And I'm sure everyone did catch it already, but for those that are a little slow, because I read it a few times to realize how, you weave together basically this beautiful point you made earlier about sleep, and how sleep, like isn't important enough out there in society, which, yeah, I agree. Um, and then your point about how you could thrive, but you needed to have, with accommodations. And so you kind of weave both of those points back into the houseplant analogy. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, it wasn't, it was, I think, partway through the writing process, first thinking about the main points that I wanted to include, but you have to find some way to make it interesting and to hook people in and keep their attention. And there's houseplants everywhere in my house. But yeah, even in reflecting on my personal time in caring for these plants, and like, everyone jokes about, oh, I have a black thumb, but it's really, it just takes trial and error. Like even for me, I feel pretty comfortable with houseplants now, but it took me a lot of research and a lot of sick and dead plants to really, it just takes the effort. You can't just expect a plant to just be perfect, or you can't expect yourself to be perfect. It's that connection to like taking care of houseplants that I enjoy the most. It's not necessarily like, oh, look at this pretty plant. It's the work I put into it.
Yeah, well, it is just an incredible analogy. And just, I think, so timely right now too. Um, for when we were talking before, we also kind of talked about this point about how, which resonated with me personally too, in prior jobs. Now that I work full time for Project Sleep, I was always working from home, which is quite great for me. Not commuting across Greater Los Angeles to a job anymore, but that this time with COVID-19, all at once, we see a lot of more people able to work from home than ever before. So I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about that experience for you personally, or, what you've seen for different people.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of other people with chronic illnesses like just grown at how like quickly reasonable accommodations for everyone across the board was implemented when when we asked so that we can do the equal work. It's not a privilege, it's just so we can do the same work that everyone else does. It's a no, it's impossible, and I think about, yeah, the jobs that I've had where I couldn't work from home, where flex time wasn't a thing, and it made it so much harder just to show up. Not even like the days that I could show up, my work would be great, but the days that it was really hard, then my work, not because I had less effort or for some reason my skill set went down. It's just, that simple thing of, can I work from home? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, great war stories of past jobs. I remember I did have one supervisor, probably the best supervisor I ever had, who like told me one day when I said, sorry, I'm late, blah, 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 and she said, sweetheart, well, I don't know if she said sweetheart, but that was kind of the feeling. She goes, just come here when you feel well enough to. And the way she said it made me feel like this complete trust that she actually meant it, that I could just show up when I felt well enough to. That was just, such a game changer. So there's wonderful people out there in some cases, but then also, this time we're seeing, yeah, like what you said, reasonable accommodations and being able to work from home. So let's hope it lasts,
Yes.
Hopefully now people realize this is possible. And so that people with disabilities will be able to do more like this going forward forever, not just until the end of COVID-19, although who knows when that will be. So one final question before we get to the questions from the audience was, so you published this in March of 2019, so it was a little bit over a year ago. What was your experience like as far as getting reactions from the community or from, your own friends and family?
Yeah, so obviously I shared it in the narcolepsy groups I'm in, and lots of people also resonated well with it. Shared it with my parents, and I think it was the first time they really understood my day-to-day life and like everything, not just recently, but from childhood, and all those cliches about pulling the kid out of bed because they won't wake up for school. Like it's not because I stayed up all night playing video games, it's because I literally can't wake up. My mom like thanked me and she was crying, and but it's nice to finally, you know, to have people that you're close to and have been such a big part of your life finally, you know, understand what you're going through. And, you know, it shouldn't take me going into the little details about how difficult it is for people to care. But I think this is a great opportunity because, you know, people don't, it's a sad, but it's the reality. People kind of block out the general day-to-day complaints, but when it's put in a way that's digestible for them and, you know, the analogies make it easier for them to understand, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. Plus, there's like such a, I think, a difference between you just never can be anyone else's shoes. So when I wrote my book, people that were very close to me during that time said when they read it, they just had no idea of all the stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't. Even when people that I felt that I was close to and that actually even got it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then they read the book and they said, "Oh my God, I still didn't even realize
Yeah.
all of it," you know. But you just don't always tell everyone every part of your life because even I think as a coping mechanism, we just try to like go on,
Yeah.
you know, as opposed to even like take the time. Wow. Okay. Well, I love that you got those responses.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me so happy. We have a question from Facebook that says, "Do you think treatment is key to your success?" Like, you know, being able to work, I guess.
Yeah, I'm on wakefulness promoting medication and one that helps me get actual restful sleep at nighttime. But you know, even those still have their drawbacks, and the number of treatments are really limited still for narcolepsy. Um, you know, one of the hard things is, you know, even though the awake medicine helps me be able to wake up and stay awake during the daytime, I can, it gets used to my body. My body gets used to it really quickly. So, you know, I can work full time 9 to 5, Monday through Friday usually, but that requires me to sleep literally almost all day from Saturday through Sunday. So it's hard because part of me is like, you know, is this living? You know, if I can't have a social life, if I can't, you know, do much around the house, you know, not even for others, but just like personal care. Um, but yeah, I think there definitely needs to be more attention on treatments, whether that's medications or whatever, in addition to what can we do now for people that have narcolepsy, whether that's accommodations or just spreading awareness.
Yeah. Um, I don't see any other questions right now I have more, so you just sparked more questions from me. I'm not sure if there's more questions coming through on Facebook, but what was I going to say about that? How has your journey been as far as managing narcolepsy and other conditions? Has that like been a challenge or, I mean, I just assume it is, but I don't
Yeah,
know if you
yeah.
got anything else.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because, you know, the other condition I have is POTS, which basically means my heart rate skyrockets, usually when I'm in an upright position, but also randomly. So for, you know, when I have sleep attacks, it's helpful for me to be, you know, having some light source, particularly naturally light source, and like walking around to help keep me more awake. But walking around a lot makes me feel dizzy really quickly. And, you know, I have sensory sensitivities. So sometimes light makes me feel worse or things like that. So it's hard to, you know, and then people are like, oh, I thought that you couldn't do this or thought this was bad for you. But it's like, bodies are weird. I don't know. I don't even know what my body wants sometimes. And yeah, that's the thing too. Like, I feel like part of me is like, if I explain how my body is to someone, that they'll just hold me to that when, you know, some days narcolepsy in itself is weird. You know, sometimes I can't sleep, which is,
Mhm.
you know, doesn't really make sense for narcolepsy. But yeah, that's why I think it's important for people to just believe people, you know, when they say that they need something or say that they can't do something and something isn't comfortable for them.
Amen to that. That's so, so true, and resonates. And the importance of getting voices out there like
Mhm.
yours, so people know the diversity of experiences too. Because often, like maybe you even feel alone in that, like, oh yeah, like I can't sleep, but then a lot of people actually can't with narcolepsy. But who knew? Because no one was talking about it
Yeah.
before, you know. So I was wondering also, like, do you think like how did you get connected to the chronic illness community, or even Project Sleep and Rising Voices? What was that? Because I know you had the disability rights, that you kind of fell into that, but did you get connected with the chronic illness community on social media? How did that all come about?
Yeah, social media was, I don't know where I would be without it. As an introvert, it's really helpful for me to just like meet people and stuff. But finding groups with people that have narcolepsy and groups of people that have chronic illnesses has been like literally life changing for me, because I don't know many people with either narcolepsy or my other conditions in real life. And just to have other folks that genuinely get what you're talking about, like you don't have to say like explain your whole condition and your backstory, like they just get it. And even things like I worry about in the future, like there's a group that I found that's like parenting with narcolepsy, like even like pregnancy, and how do you do that as a parent? Like kids are so energetic, and I barely have energy for myself, but I'm seeing that there are parents that are able to do this and can thrive, like you talked about, is really helpful, especially with that anxiety of feeling like you're alone and feeling like there's no answers, there's no hope. And yeah.
Well, it also reminds me that we are going to have an upcoming broadcast specifically about narcolepsy and pregnancy.
Oh,
So
cool.
for those, we haven't like announced it publicly. Well, now we are. I think it's going to be on May 22nd. I think it's a Friday, and we are going to have Dr. Katie Sharkey, who is a sleep specialist at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. She is a great expert on this topic and is willing to speak with us publicly about it. Because I think one thing too is that there's no right answers always, but we need information. I think it's one of the areas where people are really starved for information, and so I'm really, really excited for that conversation. So anyway, tune in for that. But let's see. And then how did you find Project Sleep and Rising Voices?
I think I was just Googling, like, there's lots of advocacy organizations that are more for like clinicians, that have conferences more for clinicians and things like that. But I was looking for like organizations that actually help patients and individuals with narcolepsy advocate and just meet other folks with narcolepsy, and stumbled upon Project Sleep and thought it was really cool.
Hey, so glad. So glad you did. And so I don't see any other questions coming through from Facebook. And so I do have one last question for you, which is, do you have any, kind of a fun one, do you have any favorite stories about a particular plant that you brought back to life, or any advice for people like myself? I have had multiple plants in this apartment. I've been able to keep one alive so far, knock on wood. It's a snake plant, but I just wanted to hear a little bit if you had any more advice or stories about plants.
I feel like for people that, people are like, oh, cacti are so easy or whatever. I have the hardest time with cacti and air plants. I think, it's a misconception. I think if you're starting out, devil's ivy or pothos, they're really easy. They can grow in water, they can grow in dirt. You can neglect them in the office. I've seen them grow. And you can also cut the ends off and propagate them into other plants to share with your friends. So that's plus. And, basil and mint are really like weeds to grow, just cut them and they grow back really fast. And, basil, you can root them in water as well. So this is a great time to, great time to test things out. And, like I said, just because something doesn't work out the first time doesn't mean it's the end. Like everyone takes, has their own journey.
Yes. All right. Well, you definitely have inspired me to take it, to, keep trying, and keep learning. And I think that was a powerful thing you said, is that you just need to like learn more. And like, I love learning, about stigma and, all these other areas, but I've never really invested as much time in learning about plants.
Yeah. And I think like, even for people that are trying to support people with narcolepsy, like my parents and my partner still make mistakes sometimes because we're just human, but the main thing is that I still recognize that they're trying. And and it's hard, when you have day-to-day stress and everyone is tired, but recognizing that you're going to make mistakes sometimes, and it's just the journey that you're going to have to take together.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. We're all just doing our best too at times. So
Yeah.
well, I guess with that, let's go ahead and just say thank you again to Rachel for reading tonight. This has been fantastic. And the link to the essay is in the bio. So please either share this video or share her essay so we can continue to raise awareness with this beautiful, articulate, and powerful article. And thank you for everyone who tuned in tonight. You guys are the best. And we hope you stay safe and healthy. And oh, next Sunday, we have a very special guest presenting. Well, I'm presenting my own story next Sunday. So we've been doing this series now since January, and it kind of occurred to Anna and I. Anna Mar helps on the back end. She does a ton of the work preparing all these. And so it kind of occurred to both of us that maybe I should share my story, which I actually don't do very much online. I give a lot of presentations across the country and around the world, but like not usually online in this kind of a format. So so please tune in next Sunday to hear me talk about me. And we'll see you again then, everyone. So thanks again
for having me. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye.